Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Talk a lot of basketball on this show. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit biased. I think we might talk college hoops better than just about anybody on the internet, okay? At the same time, we don't do a ton of NBA on this show. It's just not our area of expertise, our wheelhouse. But hey, at the end of the day, something like 99% of our views and downloads are from the US of A. We're all Americans. Now, I know there was some stuff that went on this weekend that maybe pertained to that, but today we're focusing on the Olympics, which are coming up, and specifically Team USA basketball. We don't talk a ton of, again, USA basketball, Olympic basketball, whatever, but with the Olympics starting, and more specifically, Team USA struggling in back-to-back games, including a game that just went final right before we got on air, figured it might be a good time to at least talk a little bit about Team USA and their struggles. So if you missed it, so first of all, Olympics, as crazy as it sounds, Paris Olympics opening ceremonies are on Friday night. Team USA men's basketball begins their quest for gold on Sunday. They play Serbia, a team they have beaten in the preseason exhibition slate. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is on that team. But I'll say this, like not a big NBA guy, you know that, but I can readily admit that I am actually very excited and was very excited to watch this Team USA basketball team. You kind of have that old guard with LeBron and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. You have the new guard with Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards. As the camp has unfolded, a little bit of controversy, Jaylen Brown blaming Nike for not being on the team. So it's got a little bit of something for everybody. Here is where it gets concerning, though. Prior to the Olympics, there was a lot of talk. Like, is this maybe the best NBA team, the best Olympic team that has ever been assembled? You got the young stars. You got the new stars, new age guys. I didn't even mention Anthony Davis, Devin Booker, Drew Holiday, on and on. Is this the best team that's ever been assembled? Well, I'll say this. Through 5 pre-Olympic exhibitions, I don't think there's any doubt that this is not trending to be that team. And if we're not careful, we might mess around and lose a game or two once these Olympics start because this team is not looking good. So on Saturday, I'm sure most of you at least saw in passing, the U.S. played the African qualifier, the South Sudan, on Saturday, okay? And if you're not familiar with the South Sudan, it's okay, by the way. How about this? Fun fact on the South Sudan. You don't get this anywhere else. You know that the South Sudan is the newest country in the world? Just became a country in 2011, qualified for their first Olympics. Feel-good story. If you saw on Saturday, the U.S. probably should have lost to the South Sudan Saturday afternoon. JT Thor, how about that? A shout out to producer Matt's alma mater, Auburn. But JT Thor hits a big shot in the final seconds. LeBron James comes down, puts in a layup to give the U.S. a 1-point win. JT Thor's bucket gave the South Sudan a 1-point lead. LeBron hits a bucket with 4 seconds left. The U.S. survives. Okay, cool. Well, what happens on Monday afternoon right before we come on live on the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube? Well, how about this? U.S. again struggles, is down late against Germany, and again, it's LeBron James who carries them to I believe it was a 92-88 win, 4-point win for Team USA. But at the end of the day, they have now played 5 pre-Olympic exhibitions. In those 5 exhibitions, 3 of the wins were by 6 points or less. A 6-point win over Australia, 1-point win over South Sudan, and a 4-point win over Germany on Monday afternoon, right before we came on air. And I'm just here to ask you one question. Is it time for panic with Team USA? Because I'll be honest, I kind of think it is time to panic a little bit with this team. First off, let me say this. There are a lot of guys that are trying to figure out their roles, this, that, the other thing. we got to give credit where it's due because LeBron James has been unbelievable in this tournament. And I know the second I say LeBron, half of you are going to turn this off. You don't like LeBron. Some of you love LeBron. Some of you think he's the GOAT. Some of you think he's overrated. Some of you think he's whiny. And I'll be honest, I really kind of teeter with LeBron because there are a lot of things off the court, away from basketball, that are kind of annoying when it comes to LeBron. But at the same time, you cannot deny this guy's insane basketball abilities. And especially if you watched on Monday afternoon, I keep wanting to say Tuesday, it was Monday afternoon in the U.S. The U.S. was trailing Germany late, okay? How about this? LeBron James at 39 years old on a team that includes Jason Tatum, the best player on an NBA champion, Anthony Edwards, one of the rising stars in the league, Steph Curry, whoever. LeBron James had 11 points in the final 4 minutes to seal the victory, had a couple big rebounds, and it's just like you can criticize him, you can dislike him, but my goodness, when USA basketball needed somebody to step up, LeBron did it. I saw a tweet. It was a young lady who basically said, I was watching the game with my daughter. She said, when an NBA season starts, I'll go back to rooting against LeBron, but right now I appreciate him. And that's exactly the truth. LeBron has been unbelievable. On Monday afternoon, let's get this right, he had 20 points, 11 in the fourth quarter, as I mentioned, 6 rebounds and 4 assists. And that was again after hitting the game-winning bucket on Saturday when he had 22 points. The problem is that outside of LeBron, nobody else has been terribly consistent. And the one thing I will say, if you haven't had a chance to watch, the games are on at weird times, maybe you're just getting caught up. It doesn't feel like there's a lot behind LeBron in terms of guys that are comfortable in their roles and whatever. And so to me, if I had to say one thing about this Olympic team, I think it's pretty straightforward. If this does not end with gold, if there are struggles, and I'm not doing like the whole let's overreact, let's point fingers, let's fire everybody. We got college football season to get into firing mode. But I will say, like, it does feel like the one guy that doesn't really have it totally figured out is actually Steve Kerr. So Steve Kerr is the head coach. And again, this isn't blame Steve Kerr, worst coach ever, whatever. But at the same time, if you watch these games, it feels pretty obvious that he's kind of riding with the older guys, kind of letting them start, giving them their flowers, appreciating them. And then it's kind of the younger guy, but the USA struggles, and then they put in the younger guys make a run. And there's just this weird thing where I don't think Steve Kerr has figured out, like, hey, let's show some respect to the older players, but the younger players are actually carrying us. And it just feels like everybody outside LeBron, nobody really knows their role or even really like what to expect, right? So it's interesting because some of it, look, it's not all Steve Kerr's fault. Kevin Durant's been banged up. You expected to have him. Okay. Kawhi Leonard, there was that weird thing that I just mentioned a minute ago where he's part of the Olympic team, then he's not part of the Olympic team, then he leaves, but it doesn't appear as though he wants to leave, but Team USA sends him home. Everybody thinks they're getting Jaylen Brown. They take Derek White, whatever. So you have 2 key pieces that I think he thought he would have that he didn't. But you watch these games and there's just no consistency pretty much anywhere. You start Steph. You start Drew Holiday. You start Devin Booker's kind of a guy that's kind of in that middle where you can't really figure out his role. You fall behind, you struggle early. Then it's usually Anthony Edwards and Jason Tatum come off the bench are pretty good. But then the problem becomes you put the older guys back in and you get to crunch time and you can't really figure out, am I going young? Am I going old? Even if you watch the game on Monday, Joel Embiid's playing late, but does he really fit with what they're trying to do? Steph was off the court, then he was on it late. Anthony Edwards was on the court, then he was off it late. And I just don't think Steve Kerr's really figured out what to do. Beyond that, I would say this wasn't really as much of an issue on Monday, but it was interesting that it did feel like Anthony Davis, has been the best big man on this roster. And that to me is the big question that it feels like everybody is asking is like Joel Embiid has started all of these games, but it kind of feels like we sure Joel Embiid should be starting and playing the most because Anthony Davis, I'll be honest, if there's one player, listen, I knew how good Anthony Edwards was. I knew how good Jason Tatum was, LeBron James was, whatever. And it's not to say that I didn't know how good Anthony Davis was, but because he plays in that LeBron shadow, because he plays with the Lakers, and the Lakers are always a story, but it's usually centered around LeBron, Anthony Davis has been the best big man on this team. And so I'll be curious what happens going forward. But two quick thoughts before we get to some football. One, Steve Kerr's got to stop being Mr. Nice Guy and figure out what the heck he's doing with these rotations. Old guys play, then young guys, then young guys, and then old guys close, even though it's close and they probably shouldn't be. No one outside LeBron is consistent. Anthony Davis has probably been the better big guy of the two between him and Embiid. But two, I think the bigger issue is, or the bigger thought is, look, it's cliche, it's obvious, but it's true. Like, the rest of the world is caught up in basketball. They're not afraid of Team USA. I mean, you even watch the South Sudan. I mean, all those guys on that team were like, you know what? If we're playing against LeBron and all these guys, let's go ahead and take advantage of it, and let's go ahead and put our best foot forward and show what everybody's capable of. That South Sudan team was an interesting collection of guys. You had Carlik Jones, who played at Louisville. You had Mario Shayok, who played at Iowa State. You had Wenyen Gabriel, who played at Kentucky. None of these guys are NBA superstars. Some aren't even in the NBA. But they were not afraid of Team USA. It was the same with Germany on Monday. So we'll see what happens, but Team USA has got to figure this thing out. They do not look very good right now. And I'm here to tell you, look at that Canada team that has Jamal Murray, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Dillon Brooks. Serbia with Jokic would scare me. Germany play, like, the point I'm trying to make, these teams are not scared of Team USA. And if Team USA does not figure it out soon, they could be in some very big trouble once the games start on Sunday.